our regularly scheduled commissioner meeting. We have two commissioners in-house, our administrator, Mr. Gonzalez, and our clerk of the board. And have you heard from Commissioner Peck?
No, sir. Let me check my email real quick to see. Typically, Commissioner Peck will email us if he's got an issue. Let me just make sure and update,
Okay.
see if he's got an issue. I don't see an email, Commissioner, so.
We have a quorum. We can start the meeting.
Yeah, I'll keep on the lookout for it, though, and hopefully he's okay.
Okay. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise and join in the pledge. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the warrants, vouchers. I believe there's two of them.
Yes, move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $2,180,427.86 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $1,189,043.54 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to the next item on the agenda is the approval of sheriff's travel voucher. Mr. Gonzalez, we've never seen this before. Why is this on the agenda today?
So this is a voucher that the sheriff is asking the commissioners to approve. He had gone on a trip to Chelan. It was denied by our auditor's office. And what the PA's office is asking is, perhaps write an addendum. The sheriff also has created his own travel policy. So the request from the sheriff is for you guys to approve it and to move on.
Daniel, can you weigh in on this and tell us what's going on here?
Certainly, Your Honor. I took a look at this travel voucher. The issue is that there were apparently on the agenda some meals that were provided. Franklin County's travel policy would not normally reimburse per diem for meals that are provided unless your work schedule prevented you from taking advantage of those meals. The work schedule of the sheriff, of course, is decided by the sheriff as an elected official. The memo I was asked to weigh in on, I just said he would need to put in the exceptions box that his work schedule prevented him from going to those provided meals. I did speak with him in Mr. Gonzalez's office. It does sound like that's probably what happened. He was at a more important meeting than whatever barbecue they were doing that day. I don't know that it's worth our time to fight about it anymore, but I'm going to leave that up to...
But all he's got to do then is amend his travel?
He could do that, or you could approve it as is.
So everything's on the up and up here. Everything's good.
As far as I can see, yes. The only thing that the auditor's office is pointing out is that he didn't put under exceptions why he couldn't accept the provided meals.
Gotcha.
But again, he's in charge of his own work schedule, and
Right.
he's the one who would sign off on the exceptions.
Okay.
So while we have you here, is the sheriff required to follow Franklin County's travel policy, or does he have his own policy that he's in charge of? Which is it? Because this has been an ongoing discussion and frankly has spent a lot of time on. I would like an answer.
The sheriff is required to follow the policy set by the board. In speaking with the sheriff and looking at the policy the sheriff developed, like the first line of the sheriff's policy is, this is in addition to Franklin County's policy And in any conflict, I believe it said that Franklin County's larger policy. The sheriff's intention was to have a more restrictive travel policy, not to overrule any part of the policy that the board has passed. And as far as I could tell, it did just that. It just further restricted his employees in terms of what they were allowed to claim.
And that's, his policy goes down to his employees. Our policy is above that.
Correct, and that was his understanding, and that's what his policy said.
And if you don't see any problem with this, I don't see, I mean, he could have resolved this by going and just amending his travel policy, and it had all been taken care of.
He could have resolved it just by amending his travel form.
Yes.
It wasn't in violation of his policy.
I
or
mean, his form, yes,
Yeah,
excuse me.
correct.
Okay. So do you see a need for us to resolve this, or can he resolve it on his own? Do we need to be taking up time in the meetings for this?
I believe it's within his power to have amended it. I think by not approving it here, it may turn into a larger thing, but that's a policy decision. I'll leave it to you.
Move to approve sheriff's travel policy as presented.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we'll move down to the approval of the minutes, meeting minutes. There's been 3 here on the agenda. There's August 23rd, August 30th, and September 9th.
Move to approve. I have no additions or corrections.
I'll second. Meeting minutes are approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
They're approved. Aye. Public comment. Anybody for public comment? We've moved this up so people can come forward for public comment.
Exploitation of public funds for personal financial gain. That is how I view the VEBA system as it currently exists. This system created a privileged class inside the government, very similar to the privileged classes within the government of the Soviet Union. The framers of this system included enough people into this scam to create collateral damage if anyone tried to change it back. I've been hearing and seeing words like law, equity, and equality towards the people who participate willingly or unwillingly in this program. But little has been said about what is right in respect to the people that this body is sworn to serve. We don't have enough money to renovate the jail or fix our roads, but there is enough money to dedicate over $1 million a year to make a third of the people in our government $20,000 a year more wealthy. I'll admit, taking what has been considered income away from people isn't right, but continuing to exploit tax dollars is unexcusable. I call on the 3 of you to find a reasonable way to fix this broken system that is fair to the people who have been trapped in it and fair to the people who elected you and pay your salaries. And while there is only one person on the bench responsible for creating the exploitation, all 3 of you will be complicit if it continues. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
I have 2 comments. The first is the Board of Commissioners are the legislative authority for Franklin County. The Sheriff of Franklin County is the legislative authority for the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. So I have the authority and the ability to write policy, institute it, and enforce it. Secondly, just as an FYI, Commissioners, as of this date, Franklin County, the people of Franklin County have paid nearly $11 million into the sales tax fund for mental health. So far to date, we've used none of that money to serve the people of Franklin County.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
So I am LaWanda Hatch, Precinct 100. I am going to kind of address the insurance issue. I honestly have not been part of any negotiations, so I don't know what's going on, but exactly. But this is what I do know. Both of my parents were union leaders. My mom in the state, she worked for the school district, and she was the state president at one time for the public school employees. And my father worked for the federal government and was part of the machinists union out at Hanford. And they did a lot of negotiating for benefits. My parents had health insurance that overlapped, and they could never cash out their insurance. That was never even discussed, or a policy. It's very rare to have that. But again, it's hard once someone has a benefit to take that away, and they see that as a benefit. So it's a very big challenge, especially when a much wealthier county across the river gives those benefits. So how do you keep employees? So as you go back and forth, just an idea, a thought that I have out to put out there is, first you take, what would it cost for the county, for every person to get health insurance? What would that cost? And then you take those people that drop out. Once they drop out, it makes all the other policies more expensive for the county. That's the problem. And so then they say, well, equity, now that insurance is costing this much, we need to get that much in cash. So my thought is, you take what it would cost for everybody to have it. Then once those third drop out, you subtract from that original amount what it's going to cost for those that remain on the insurance. And then you say to those other people, so you know what we're going to do for you, now that we've subtracted that, we're going to take that remaining money, we're going to divide it up, and we're going to put it in health savings accounts. Because even with the best insurance, you still have deductibles that you have to make. And there's things that aren't covered in insurance. So a health insurance savings account would help them with their taxes. It would also make it so it doesn't cost the county anymore. And that's the problem. We are continually robbing Peter to pay Paul. And we are under rapid inflation right now. And I understand that the sheriff's departments, the jail costs, they're all rising. And I can tell you as a wedding planner, I mean, my tablecloths that are polyester, that are oil-based, the prices are jumping exponentially. It's almost doubling. So those costs, and yet we're not getting more from the state. So anyhow, that's just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Commissioners, I addressed the insurance issue last week. And I want to bring something to your attention. I went ahead and just took a look at the way this resolution is written, just as it will affect the county for my office. Just the exempt or the non-bargs and myself. Now, electeds do not get VEBA. Let's make that clear. Electeds currently do not get VEBA. So this talk about VEBA and the electeds and getting that, electeds don't get VEBA. And I think that was pushed by Commissioner Neva Corcoran nearly 30 years ago for that type of programming. But in my office, you will increase the cost to this county by over $22,000 under the new program that it is being presented right here. $22,000 a year increase to the county, not a decrease, just the way it's written here for the non-exempt and the elected, just in the assessor's office. Now, it hugely benefits my exempt employees. This plan gives them nearly $800 more than they're currently getting. I think that's fantastic for those employees. You know, it forces the county under a program I would have to do to increase what the county currently compensates me for by an additional $300 a month. $22,000 a year more, just my office. The 50-some people that are on there mostly are union people, and you're going to have to deal with that when union negotiations. So please look at this carefully. I would love to see my employees that are exempt get better coverage, but I can't see it at the cost to the county of $22,000 a year, just the employees in my office. So just take that into consideration.
We are in public comment. Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phones?
No, sir.
Okay.
Kim Pauley, Commissioner, Franklin County District 4. We came in about a month ago, requested some funding. I've left messages on the phone, received nothing back, so I guess I have more of a request than a comment. Our budget is coming up in November. It'd be very prudent for us if we'd know whether or not we have any funding coming from that ARP funding. Thank you.
It's public comment. We can't interact. Is there anybody else for public comment?
George Dockstetter, Self Landing Road. I'm here on the VEBA again. I've been talking about it for a couple years. It's a disgrace that you're taking that money and giving cash to employees or elected officials, because there are elected officials that receive it, despite what John said. And there is nobody else that I know of in this area where you take cash instead of the benefits. If you even pile up your time off or vacation time, a lot of them have a limit. If you don't use it, you lose it. And the other thing is, how come we're not in a pool with all the other counties in eastern Washington to get a bigger pool and lower our cost? We're here as an individual. Everything I've heard, we don't belong to a pool. We may belong to a major risk pool, but we don't belong to a pool for insurance like the school districts do. They all pool together and get a cheaper plan. And last week, we had a bunch of people get up here and speak in favor of VEBA, and every one of them was a county employee that's getting money. So take that into consideration when you vote, which I hope is to get rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Peter Harpster, 525 Road 47, Pasco. Over the weekend, there was a third and fourth fatality at 395 in Crestlock over by the Country Mercantile. And I work with the now widowed husband on some projects here in town. And super unfortunate. What I think is even more unfortunate is the Herald actually reached out to WashDOT representatives who were responsible for that. And their response was basically, well, we've made some improvements in the past and that should be good enough, but we might take another look. And so I think it might be beneficial for leaders in this county to petition WashDOT for further improvements. Some kind of an overpass has been discussed there. If for nothing else, maybe flashing lights like we've got coming into Eltopia. But something needs to be done. There's been several accidents there, and like I said, this was the third and fourth fatality, a mother and a daughter that passed this weekend. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I apologize for coming up again, but I have a medical VEBA, and Franklin County, nor George Dockstetter, nor anybody else put in that medical VEBA account. It's my medical VEBA account. And the county to this day doesn't put into any VEBA account. Even though as a group of electeds, we could sit down and take a vote if we want to put our money into a VEBA account on a percentage basis. If you check history and look back, this board, not you as individuals, voted to convert the insurance policies to a cash sum and also ordered that it be put into wages. And I'm in my elected cycle right now, just for a hint. And that's the way it's been since this board took the action and did so. So I would also caution you that the way to undo this is to start with the collective bargaining agreements, whom this board gave VEBA accounts in the form of a raise, which was what started all this, and then gave them to the non-exempts, or to the exempt, the same way to match what took place with the county or with the collective bargaining agreement groups. So this isn't as easy as it looks just to undo it. There has to be some talking, some negotiating, and you have to always start with your collective bargaining agreements so that it doesn't become a bigger problem than it is right now.
Excuse me,
No,
what,
if we want to interact, they got to be later in the agenda. This is just public comment. We can't interact.
I'll be more than willing to come back and answer your questions, Commissioner.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone. Moves us down to the approval of the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda.
So my agenda has 7.
These 4 down here are on regular business, these 3 here are on the consent.
All right, thank you. Move to approve consent agenda items 1 through 3 as presented.
I second. Is there any discussion?
I have no discussion on those
Hearing no
3.
discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Takes us down to regular business. We have the first resolution is 2023-282. Ms. Orozco.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. We've recently had a few openings in our office, I'm sure you're aware. With those new positions, we've had some movement, so everybody is kind of stable at this point. We had some individuals apply, and we are desperately in need of clerks right now. We kind of have everybody filling out the window positions, all the way from the court administrator down to anybody who's willing to get up there, except for myself, because I'm not permitted to take money. But everybody's doing what they need to do at this point, but we really need some help. We've had somebody who's applied and is aware of all of the aspects of the judicial system as far as what's required of the clerks. This individual does assist people at the customers at the window where she currently works, accepts payments, runs dockets, updates the judicial system through the state, manages dockets in the courtroom, is comfortable in all aspects of her position, and has recently applied for our vacant position, which is really exciting for us because it's going to cut down the training needs, and she'll be able to jump right in and get to work. We would overwhelm our training supervisor if we were to require him to train 2 people at the same time. Now, we're willing to do that, and he said he'd be willing to do that, but it's going to put us behind as far as all of the additional documents that we receive for civil matters, because he also handles all of the civil cases that come in. We basically found a unicorn, and it's not going to impact our budget. Because of the movement, people who were in a certain position have now reduced down a little bit. So when we look at it as a whole, we're going to be about $11,000 under budget, and we still get to hire this individual and meet her income right now, which was confused why I needed to ask for requests, considering our budget was going to remain the same. But I am requesting that you allow us to hire this individual at the grade 12, step 6.
So, Mr. Gonzalez, because we've had this happen in other departments, and they didn't have to come before the board. If it remains inside the budget, does she have to come before the board for this request?
There is a policy in place to, we go on the grade and step system. So if you go up certain grades, I don't know exactly what the formula is. So they are supposed to come before the board, and this is a policy that we're looking at on our financial plan with the Consor group, because the argument is, within certain grades and steps, the elected official or department head should have certain authority. The grade and step system, it's really antiquated in some certain senses in a lot of municipalities. So, because it doesn't allow flexibility when someone like Judge Orozco comes before you and says, look, I have the budget money. I know how to manage our funds, and why do we have to waste your guys' time every single time? So that's a policy we're looking at. So while Judge Roscoe obviously doing the right thing within policy, I mean, within a certain extent, we have good professionals leading our departments and elected officials. You know, sometimes it seems like a waste of time within the authority structure. So, because it becomes a dog and pony show, like, yeah, here you are again. And yeah, so we're looking at that policy so we can kind of get it straightened out. Because I think what I'm sensing when I talk to our elected officials and our department heads is, look, we know how to manage our budget. We've had people that are here long-term. And so we're looking at fixing that system. So, I mean, my recommendation is to approve this, and because, you know, there's a definite need. I think the larger issue is, let's look at this policy and figure out how we don't have to get every department head or elected official to come in front of you, you know, for every step increase or grade increase.
And I believe what you said there that is key is it is a move, grade, and steps, which is
Right.
out of the norm. So that's probably
Right,
why
so-
it's before us.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
And there's no grant money involved in this. This is all within your budget.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Mullin?
You know, I see it's a zero impact to your budget. I guess my only question is, what is the salary for a grade 12, step 6?
I didn't print that out, but I can tell you a grade 12, step 1 would, you'd probably make more money if you went to Hobby Lobby. So.
I realize
yeah,
that. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, it's not, I think it was $23.94 maybe an hour.
Okay, all right. No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve. I don't have a
Here you go.
resolution 2023-282 as presented.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
No further discussion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So next on the agenda is Resolution 2023-283, but that's been pulled and tabled by Mr. Bratton. He needs another week to get that put together, so that has been pulled, item B. Item C, Resolution 2023-284, presented by Mr. Gonzalez, and this is the purchase of real estate.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is the third time that this has come before the board. Just trying to do our due diligence. This is the potential purchase of the building at 1310 North Fifth Avenue. Many people know it as the Michael Davidson Law Office. So right now, Mr. Davidson is offering that at $1.1 million. We have done a lot of due diligence on that. We did get a market appraisal, and it appraised nearly $1.3 million. So I feel like we're, you know, from a market perspective, we're getting a good deal. It's got good bones. We've checked it out. We've done an inspection. The only real thing that came on the radar was an older HVAC system, which probably has end of life in just a couple, 2-3 years. So our intent is to move building and planning into there. There's also other options, perhaps the coroner's office, also weed and pest board could move right in there. So I feel like it's an incredible opportunity. We'd be able to purchase it with ARPA funds. From a financial perspective, I feel like, you know, there's been talks of the economy, but still sales tax for us has been relatively strong, and got into a good conversation with the treasurer's office yesterday, and just going to read off some notes. You know, there's been lots of talks of rates and how that kind of affects the economy, but it's interesting when rates are high for us, and, you know, we reinvest other jurisdictions' money. So with rates at 8-10%, we're actually generating more revenue at the county than we ever have before. So it's kind of a counterintuitive when you think about it. So when rates are at 2 or 3%, we're investing, you know, let's say the school district's money before they send out their paychecks. You know, let's say that pot of money is $7 million. They can spend that in 5 days and start generating revenue. So what Russ was telling me is that this year we have generated nearly $2 million in additional revenue for our cash flow just because rates are high. You know, you don't get the volume, but you get a much higher rate of return. So so pretty fascinating that came out of that treasurer's office meeting yesterday. So I feel I feel good about where we are financially, because that's always a conversation, is the economy slowing down. I mean, I look at it also as like sometimes you got to step up your game. And we have this opportunity to get a building on our campus. And I have to be honest with you, commissioners, when I go out to our planning and building office, I'm a little embarrassed. It's an old structure built in I believe, the 1940s. You go in there, I don't want to say it's unsafe, but it's rickety and old. And we have this opportunity, which I think is really a once in a lifetime, and we're going to regret it if we don't get it. We've done our due diligence. It's been on our radar, and I know Commissioner Peck's not here today, but I know he's been on the record and said, that building's been on in his purview for many years. And I think it's going to be beneficial for the community. And I think the overarching thing, it's going to give our customers better access to the courthouse, and I think it's going to give our employees a much better place to work, much more pride. And, so all those, and I think that all plays into morale too. So I know there's been conversation, and is this the right time? I think it's the right time, because I honestly think that we will regret not having that building. I mean, we're set to grow, and by 20 years, we're going to, another 30, 40,000 people are going to move to Franklin County. We're going to have to provide those services. And ultimately, if we're not going to have to expand now, we're going to have to expand in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So we better start laying the groundwork and continue our vision of growth and having good structures for the public.
Questions?
What are we currently spending for lease agreement on the building and planning?
Right now, I think it's a little over $1,000 a month. It collectively, and thank you to Teresa Alvarez, our clerk. She looked at all of the leases that we currently have. So we're paying $102,000 a year leasing to the port only. We lease all our structures kind of in that airport area. So that can obviously come off the bankroll. You say $12,000, $15,000 a year. It's still significant. So that's one thing, and really what we need to do in 2024, Commissioner, is really come up with a long-term capital game plan for how do we get in our own structures? Because right now we're forced to do what the port says, and we've got structures that they need, and they're going to take over, in particular our facilities department. So we've got to figure that out. We've got vehicles that the sheriff's office is having to store for court cases that have to be moved, and they're telling us, hey, got to go. So we're kind of at the mercy of the port. So I really think by purchasing this building, it's really the jump-off point for creating a plan and a strategy for expansion, having our own buildings. So that's definitely on the forefront of what's happening here. So, but eventually, if we wind up having our own structures, whether that's 5, 7, 10 years, $102,000 is still a lot of the taxpayers' money to be leasing buildings, which quite frankly look like junk.
Is it my understanding that we're responsible for the repairs of those buildings?
I don't know exactly what, I know Jeff's been looking at some of the language. Jeff, in terms of the structures that we work with the port, as far as maintenance, are we the ones that have to upkeep that and put our own money into the structures, or is it sort of like renting an apartment where the super comes and fixes the roof or something?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I have looked at 2 of the leases that we have with the port, and this is a little bit odd because typically in a normal lease you would not be responsible for maintenance. But in the leases that I've reviewed, we are responsible for maintenance of the port's buildings.
Which is obviously an additional cost, and
Exactly.
the older the buildings are, the more problems they have, and so I think it would send a good message that we want to
I see
upgrade.
Jennifer in the back of the room too. Would you mind come forward? Because I seen you nodding when that was asked, and there's some questions I think we need to ask you.
Just that I'm in agreement with Jeff. All of our leases with the port are as is. We are responsible for maintaining the HVAC, the roof, everything with those. And facilities has done a lot of the work in trying to get new HVAC equipment for the planning building for this year. And, you know, if there's any problems with the drains or the roof drains leaking or anything else inside the Public Works building, we're taking care of those as well. So it is an as-is lease on all of the port.
And the HVAC you said is currently,
We've replaced one of the HVACs at 502 building, the planning building.
you did replace one. How many are there? Two?
Yes, there are two.
And when did we replace that?
The one was just replaced probably within the last 3 months.
And you also reported earlier that the leases are scheduled to go up.
I know our leases. I don't know about the other leases, no.
Okay.
And Chair, permission to speak.
Yes, Mr.
Derek just texted me, and they pay $1,600 a month for their lease out there, which is more than I thought it was, to be honest with you.
So that's planning and building, weed control, pest control.
Yes,
And all
sir.
three of those could go in this building.
Yep.
And we could vacate that building.
Absolutely. And I'm working, right now I'm working with the port to see what an exit strategy would be, because, I mean, we have a great relationship with the port.
Yep.
So my guess is if they don't make us pay a small penalty fee, they may just go, go ahead. So hopefully we have that type of relationship where we can work out something, because I've expressed to them, we'd like to vacate that building as soon as we possibly can, not like tomorrow, but as soon as we secure the building and are able to make that transition plan. And I'm pretty sure they'll be amenable to us getting out of that lease. It's just a matter of what we'll need to do that.
If we were to make this move, would we still have the funds available for Fire District 4?
We would. I mean, that's really been my game plan is.
Thank you,
Because
Jennifer.
I didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver, and forgive me because I haven't gotten a ton of calls from them, and I know they've been working with our auditor's office to get looking at what exactly is available. So, but yeah, it would be right around that margin, and that would close out the ARPA funding. So ideally, what I would like to see is the purchase of this building, Fire District 4 get what they need, and then that's the end of our ARPA funding. And I think we've utilized it extremely effectively. We've taken care of a lot of things. But, I think it's time to put a close on the ARPA chapter too.
Yeah. Before we get more calls.
Right, because it never ends. And, I think the intent of that from, there were COVID funds that were intended to close gaps and give us opportunities where we may not have had those because of lack of revenue coming in. But, also, how long can we last on, a government system that, wasn't intended for us to hang on to it. I mean, it's intended to do what we need to do to advance and then move on.
And it's limited in its availability. To
Right, and you can't
direction.
just use it for anything. And like I said, this is I think a tremendous opportunity to really upgrade our building. And I think the most important thing is give the community access to our planning and building department without having to, not that it's so far, but you go out there in that airport area, and anybody that's been in that industrial area, you kind of drive around, you go, where the heck is it? And then you go up to our door, you go, is this it? And I'd like to have something that we're proud of. And again, market value is right around 1.3 million, and we're getting it for 1.1. And the reality, commercial real estate's only increasing. 5 years, I mean, that thing will be 1.7, 1.8.
I see our treasurer would like to come to the mic.
So I just wanted to have some clarification from yesterday. Right now, for our investments, we are currently we were budgeted for 1.4 million. We're currently at 1.7, and by the end of the year, we should be about 800,000 over budget. So we are not going to be $2 million over budget. We'll.
This is on the interest.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I just want to do that clarification.
Oh, okay, thank
So,
you.
All right. Thank you.
Any
Again,
more
I don't
discussion?
have, Well, I agree with Mr. Gonzalez that we definitely need to be planning for the future rather than being behind. So I just wanted to point out the fact that we were maintaining those buildings, and that's a cost that
Right.
is not on paper.
Absolutely, that's a really good point.
Just wanted to bring that out. And then I'd move for approval, make the motion. I don't,
There you
for
go.
some reason, it's not on my paperwork, so.
No, not the third one right here.
Move for approval of Resolution 2023-284 as presented.
I'll second. Discussion?
I have no further discussion.
With no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes that. So moves down to the approval of benefits contribution presented by Tim Anderson, Mike Gonzalez, and Rich Dickman. We'll start with Tim. Is that the way you want it to go? Mr.
Yes, sir,
Gonzalez?
and I know Tim was just coming off vacation, and I saw his email that he might not be able to present, so I'm excited that he's going to be able to. Did you want to say anything, or I can go right into my?
Yeah, I think it would be fine just you leading off. I
Yeah,
mean, this is
so-
just bringing back the same,
Yeah,
the same resolution from
Perfect.
last week. There wasn't any changes to it from last week. It was just, there was some concerns or questions that were being asked of the prosecutor's office last week, and so that's why it was being brought, so it was pushed back for a week.
And Julio, I do have a PowerPoint that Commissioner Didier asked me to show again. So I've got it hooked up on my computer here.
Rocky, and then I signed this, right?
So this is a lot of what I showed to the public last Wednesday, but Commissioner Didier asked me to show it again because a lot of people had missed the meeting in the community and wanted me to go through it again. So forgive me forgive me for those that have seen this. So a little bit about our benefits explanation. A few of the reasons why we're trying to make adjustments to the benefits package. The current system is out of balance. VIBA is a benefit. It's not a requirement. That's something a lot of people forget. We're trying to be more attractive for employee recruitment. VIBA is really intended for health benefits. In our estimation, it's not a redistribution of wealth. I mean, it's been called socialism, communism around here. We're applying more money towards our premium for a better plan. That's really what we're trying to do. We don't know about savings yet. It really just depends on how many people jump on the plan. We hope a lot of people jump on the plan because we have a good one. And we're trying to provide more fairness and equity across the board with VIBA distributions. So here's what I'm hearing, as the county administrator. This is an additional slide of what I'm hearing around the courthouse. A lot of people send me emails, and a lot of people come talk to me. And I'm an old reporter by nature, so I like talking to people. So I put my reporter's hat on. So, and again, I'm not taking a side on any of these. These are just putting my my neutral reporter hat on. What I'm hearing from folks, some think that we're socializing benefits. I'm hearing from a lot of long-term employees who feel like they've paid their dues on our family plan without VIBA for many years, and the younger and newer employees shouldn't be allowed to reap the benefits of VIBA. So that's something I've heard quite a bit from our long-term employees. So they feel pretty strongly about that. I've heard from others, we're taking from the haves and giving to the have-nots. We're targeting certain classes of employees. We're basing this decision on marital status, which is not true in regards to the certain classes or marital status. I've heard we're making assumptions about people's situations, which I don't think we are either. Younger employees I've talked with are wondering why we get so much VIBA. They'd rather have a raise. And I'm hearing from employees on our family plan and employee spouse plans that are telling me, Mike, hey, I'm appreciative that we're going to have VIBA because I haven't had one for many years. So again, those are narratives that I'm hearing, take them or leave them. So what's the reality? and this is me editorializing here a little bit. What we're trying to create is an organization that provides equal, affordable, and high-quality health care to each employee, regardless of their pay grade. We want to be able to recruit high-quality employees in every category. We need to take a comprehensive look at how we look at what the younger generations wants out of their health care benefits. I've talked to a lot of them around the courthouse, and I've also studied the issue. Studies are showing younger employees want flex time, vacation hours, working at home, job skill development, opportunities to advance. A VEBA or an HSA is not the highest priority on their list. So here's some numbers that I showed last Wednesday, but I'll break those out again. And these are just some employee numbers. 59 waive insurance or take cash. As one of the elected officials mentioned, they do not receive VEBA. They elected to take that in cash in 2016. So yeah, that's a fact. So it averages about $1,570 and 1.1 million total costs for those 59 employees. 126 employee onlys. They average about 900 in VEBA distributions per year. That costs us about 1.3 million. The total waivers, employee only, 2.5 million, and I won't belabor these other numbers. I'll just let you take a quick peek. The total payout for VEBA for Franklin County is 2.7 million. So current benefit cost to Franklin County, the cost of medical insurance. So we pay about $2 million for our premium for United Healthcare this past year. Cost of VEBA insurance, waivers, and cash out options cost us $2.7 million. So the total cost for our insurance package, that's with insurance and VEBA, about $4.6 million. And these are not exact numbers, they're rounded up. We have some tremendous VEBA, and I think VEBA is it's really a great benefit. We have a lot of employees with six-figure VEBA balances, several in the 150 range, all the way up to 300,000. But we also have long-term employees who have zero in VEBA because they're not eligible. So what I did is broke out VEBA contributions by county. So our HR department, they reached out to many of the counties in eastern Washington and western Washington. We got 17 responses. So here's a look at what counties will pay out in VEBA typically. So in Benton County, the non-bargaining groups get $300, and you can see by county employees $250, and you could see the other categories there. Chelan, the road crew $200 monthly, the non-bargs about $175. You could see the jail Ask Me group $200. Sheriff, all contracts receive $50 monthly. Yakima, across the board $123.51. Mason County it's only offered to retirees, and Clark County, VEBA isn't offered. Snohomish County, $200 monthly. Pacific, $105.96. Employees who waive receive $535.39. You can see Island County at $250. Okanagan, $25 to $95. Garfield, $100. $600 monthly for employees who waive. Adams County, $76.23. Douglas County bargaining groups, $125. Spokane County, VEBA is set up for only post-separation, and they've got a lot of stipulations in there. Skamania, $60 a month. Kitsap really breaks it out in a lot of different categories. Lewis County, $75. Sheriff's Operations Sergeants receive $50. So that gives you kind of a snapshot and I just wanted to do that as a comparator. So Franklin County benefits plan broken out. So I wanted to really kind of explain to the public, what our contribution amounts are and the type of plans that we have and the type of employees that kind of fit into these varying buckets, because it gets confusing when it comes to health insurance. It sure does. So Franklin County, we pay $1,568.25 towards every employee's insurance, regardless of your pay grade, what plan you fit into. We have a $1,000 deductible plan, a $2,000, and a $3,500 deductible plan. We have 6 types of employees on our benefits plan. We have employee only, employee and their spouse, employee and their child, employee and their family, elected officials who convert VEBA to cash, they have that ability, and employees that waive insurance. So I really wanted to I made this addition because I got some feedback from the community that they didn't quite understand, some of the deductibles and sort of how it works. So I'm gonna take a look at the $1,000 deductible plan and kind of show you some of the disparities in VEBA contributions. So this is our $1,000 deductible plan. So this really is our most expensive plan. And I think this will be somewhat enlightening. So I'll start with employee-only costs in our $1,000 deductible plan. So the cost of that premium for the county, it costs us $764.68. And again, remember I said that we pay that $1,568.25 for every insurance that we pay for our employees. So you do the math, you minus the $764 from the $1,568, and then that's where you get the VEBA contribution amount. It comes out to the $803.57. So this is a really attractive plan. The cost to the employee for insurance in this plan is zero. So, anecdotally, what I'm seeing is we've got, I think the number was 126 of our employees that take employee only. Because it's an attractive plan, you get a large VEBA. And what I'm finding is that we have a lot of married folks that take this plan because their spouse or significant other has insurance at their work, so they wind up covering the kids or they cover themselves if they don't have children, and they wind up with a pretty nice VEBA in their check each month. So we'll move to employee child costs in our $1,000 deductible plan. So you notice the cost of the premium goes up to $1,376.41. Again, we pay that same amount across the board. Cost of the employee, it's zero, so that's really solid. The amount of VEBA, you see it lessens as the cost of the premium goes up. So this person and this employee gets the $191.84 a month. So I'll go back and you compare that to the employee only, who gets $803.57. It's significantly less. So we move to employee spouse, and that premium cost continues to rise for the employee spouse. Again, county pays that same amount. The cost of the employee is just a little bit, still good. But because they're actually having to pay the premium now, the amount of VEBA payout is zero. So they get nothing because they're paying the difference between the cost of the premium and what the county pays. So we move to the family plan. Again, the more people on it, family costs more for the premium. That's just the reality. It costs $2,294.01 in our current environment. Again, we pay that $1,568.25. So the cost of the employee is that difference, the $725.76, and they get zero in VEBA because you wind up getting VEBA. The cheaper the plan, the more the amount the difference is. So just really basic math. So our elected officials are paid in cash in lieu of VEBA. So in 2016, our elected officials voted to take their VEBA contributions in cash and receive the $1,568.25 as a taxable wage in lieu of VEBA. We have elected officials who have our health insurance plan, and that difference, let's say they're on employee only, they'll get that as a taxable wage, that difference, if they're on the $1,000 plan. So as John mentioned, elected officials do not receive VEBA. Then employees who opt out, so if you have a qualifying plan, you're able to receive that $1,568.25 in VEBA monthly. So we have a lot of employees, we work in a government town, and we have a lot of folks who have spouses who have incredible insurance, whether they work at Hanford, they work at the school district, or another place. So they're fortunate enough to have a spouse, that can pick up the entire family, and they could pick up the entire $1,600, which is again a great benefit. And I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong. They're just taking advantage of the system that we have and maximizing their dollars. But you can see this would be advantageous if you had a spouse that had good insurance. I'm taking the money and I'm taking the VEBA because it's a good benefit. So hopefully that kind of gives you some context of how things break out. So this is something that I wanted to show in a little bit more detail because I was criticized by a few employees that I didn't go in depth on this. So here is our current medical plan, and I just went over that $1,000 deductible plan, so I won't go through that again. So I'll get to the $2,000 and $3,000, $3,500 deductible plan. So you could see on the $2,000, again, our current allocation, again, it's going to be that $1,568.25. We're always going to pay that for every employee. On the $2,000 plan, you could see employee only. It's cheaper than the $1,000 plan. It's $645.41. But go all the way to the right and see what the VEBA payout is. It's $922.84. So again, a really advantageous plan. We have employees that, they're married on this plan. We have employees that are married within the Franklin County system, and they both will take employee only and be able to get the 922 and combine that. So again, a good benefit and maximizing your dollars, but you could see that some of the disparities as you go. Depending on the plan, it's 212, 406, and then the 0 for families. And kind of the same line. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but you kind of get what I'm saying here. Employee only in the 3,500, we pay that same amount. Cost us $547. They wind up getting the $1,020.93. So it kind of behooves most people, and the data shows that most people are going to the employee-only plan because that's what maximizes VEBA, and they're able to get a family plan normally through a spouse. So, and I'm going to show you. So this is our current proposal that we have on the table, and I'll start again with the $1,000 plan. So with the employee only, that would cost us $800. We'd pay $750.38. Employee would pay $50, and as you see on the right, every employee would receive VEBA regardless of whatever category they're in, and it kind of just going to the $2,000 plan on the left, you see the rates that it costs the county. You'll see what we want to pay into the premium. Again, what the employee will pay, and ultimately, every employee would get that $400 VEBA. So again, without beating a dead horse, I'll let you guys take that in for another few seconds. But you can see that we're changing what we contribute to the plan, and that hopefully allows us to get a better plan, and then also be able to provide VEBA for everybody. So that's the presentation, and hopefully that sheds some light, commissioners, and in a simplistic way.
Any questions?
No, most of the questions I had were answered in that presentation, but just want to point out this was created in 2016.
Well, VEBA's been around the county for many years, beyond 2016. I think.
But that's when they converted it to cash.
Yeah, the issue in 2016 is the elected officials formed a group which allowed, and really forced is probably a better term, for elected officials to take it in cash. And my understanding, and correct me elected officials if I'm wrong, they cannot take that VEBA benefit. Am I correct there, Mike, that you guys have to take that in cash? You cannot put that into a VEBA, because in my talks with Sheriff, I know, Sheriff, you've got to take your cash contribution then put into a separate one, right? A separate VEBA account.
Well, the whole VEBA thing, the medical VEBA thing you're talking about here, you're really convoluting it into insurance numbers, and there's two different things. So VEBA, okay, I was in the management group of non-contracted people when I worked for the city of Pasco. I paid 2% of my wages into my VEBA account over the span of about 2 decades, okay? The city refused to put any money into my VEBA, okay? So with those parameters, we had to take a vote, and it had to be a 100% vote in order to open up VEBAs, okay? And it has to be by group, and it has to be a 100% agreement. So let me transpose over to the county. So all the elected officials, to include you all, me, the judges, everybody that's elected has to sit down and go, do we want to form a VEBA? And though it was done really bad when the question arose, it was no, because everybody in those elected positions had different plans, different directions, okay? So what happened is, what are you going to do with the insurance, with your insurance? Because there's no longer a Cadillac plan by federal law or any of those type of things. You can have one insurance. And if you read deep in the law, it says that your employer or my employer has to come up with some resolution why, because I'm not taking my benefits. So for me, as an elected official, it's a no-brainer for me. I can go on my wife's insurance, which is school district employee insurance, and she can pay $185 a month for me to be fully covered 80/20. Or I can put her on my insurance and I can pay $800 a month for her to come on to my county insurance. It's a no-brainer. It's the same mathematical thing. So ultimately, for the electeds, bring them all back together and ask them if they want to do a VEBA and if they want to adhere to this. But it doesn't fix the other part of that this board gave electeds a raise in the form of transferring dollars into their wage versus putting into VEBA or something else. And you can't undo that without, waiting for me to exit the seated cycle and those type of things. So there's lots of different variable numbers that doesn't say. If you forced me to take an insurance, said, well, you got to pick one or the other. Well, okay, I can easily do that. I'll just take the full coverage from the county, and the cost to the county is going to go up. Not down, it's going to go up.
So who says you have to take insurance or a cash payout? Most companies I've ever worked with, you either take the insurance or you get nothing.
Insurance, one insurance, okay? And that as a collective bargaining group or as a group, managers, judge, or electeds, you have to vote and come into agreement to form VEBAs, okay? Then once you have that vote, say, no, let's do a VEBA, and let's talk about how we're going to put our benefits, our medical benefits, when and where. Then you go from there and you go, okay, electeds, and I'm just using us as electeds as an example. Do you want to accept what the county's wanting to do? Is I don't even know what the number is because ultimately it doesn't impact me. Say it's $400. If that group says, yep, let's do that. Let's lead the way. Let's take $400 and open up VEBA accounts, and we'll just take the $400 in lieu of insurance. Then yeah, you can do that, but you've got to get the group to vote and be in agreement. And that's the problem with electeds, is they couldn't come into agreement when this topic was talked. And then your board, this Board of County Commissioners, they said, well, we're going to give you this amount of benefit in the form of cash, and you're going to be taxed, which I've been doing for, I don't know, whenever I came off the county's insurance, this last couple of years, I think. So I get taxed. It goes into my wages. It's considered a wage. Then I take that money and I put it...
In your own VEBA?
Nope. I put it in a secondary retirement account so that when it comes out, I get taxed again. Just telling you, that's what I'm doing.
No,
because I can't put into my VEBA because the group, the electeds, don't want VEBAs. And so if you go to the lower level, the collective bargaining agreement levels, okay, this board sent representatives to negotiate with them to say, hey, we can do this. We can put money in a VEBA for you at this rate in exchange for raises. And documentation and history will prove that. And so if you go to the lowest level, which is your collective bargaining agreements with VEBA, and you tell them what it is you want to do, different story, they could go they could vote as a bargaining group, go, oh yeah, that's a good deal. Let's take that VEBA amount contribution and, take it in a raise or some other way, which is, I think, is the intent of what the board's wanting to do. It's just that you're getting the cart before the horse. You have to negotiate with the collective bargaining agreements in order to get what it is the ultimate outcome of this is. And then when you get them agreement, then go ahead and start at your non-protected classes or your non-contract people, and then just try to mirror it as you move along. But you're always going to have to talk with groups about medical contributions into a VEBA, because there's rules with VEBA. I can't cash it out. It's not like it's a retirement program. I can use it for specific medical reasons, and I can use it to pay my supplemental insurance when I hit Social Security Medicare age, which is next year.
So, Mr. Gonzalez, you have something?
Yes, Chair. On the phone, I have Rich Dickman. So he's an HRA senior consultant with Gallagher, and he also is our consultant here at Franklin County for our VEBA and manages. So I've got him on the phone. He's at a conference in Walla Walla, but he was nice enough to join us on the phone. So so he kind of wants the opportunity to explain the VEBA system that we have, and if the commissioners have any specific questions for him, he's available right now to answer those. Rich, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you perfectly fine. And yeah, if you want to kind of make an opening statement, I know we didn't want to get into debates on what's right and what's wrong, but off the bat, can you kind of explain our plan and some of the different variations of what we have going on at Franklin County?
Sure. So originally, I was the regional consultant for the HRA VEBA Trust in Tri-Cities. Back in my beginning stages of working in government, I was a government employee for the state of Washington. I was a state auditor in Tri-Cities. So I knew a lot of folks, including your accountants at the county. When the HRA VEBA Trust was expanding, it started in 1990. But when I started 26 years ago with the trust, I started working with my former auditees, being Franklin and Benton County. And at that time, Benton County was the first to look at how can we fund the VEBA, because it's triple tax-free. It goes in tax-free, it's invested tax-free, comes out tax-free. And the main thing that they wanted to try to solve is help people become better stewards of their health benefit dollars, and then ultimately have, like Mike said, some accounts have been up to, and they've had their VEBA account for many years and haven't had to use much of it, up to $100,000 or more, and so then they use that in retirement to pay their health insurance premiums, and also when they go on to Medicare, the Medicare Part B, Part D, Medicare supplement plans, Medicare Advantage plans. So we've been working on this for over 40 years. I've only been working on it for 26, but that's okay, because I understand that the average retiree, and we work with the state of Washington on this, will spend over $300,000 in their retirement years on health insurance premiums alone, although the VEBA can be used for out-of-pocket co-pays, deductibles, co-insurance, when you're working and when you need service. That was the main reason why the county started funding the plan. And then over the years, they looked at ways to expand it, and I think they increased the amount for folks who were waiving off coverage, going on to their spouse's plan, to as high as it is now. But when I first started, it was around $500 going into the account a month. At that point in time, that was, again, a lot of money, but now it seems to be a point where maybe financially the county can't keep up with funding the VEBA at that level. if we continue to have increasing costs for health insurance premiums and you jack up how much is the employer allocation and therefore also jacking up how much is going into VEBA, that might not be sustainable. So I was asked, could we change the funding method, especially for the non-represented employees? And I said, well, I'm not a labor law attorney, but as far as I know, in working with 500 or so municipalities across the state, there is nothing in labor law that says an employer can't change the benefits of the non-represented employees. Of course, you have to collectively bargain with your bargaining groups, but as far as I know, I've never seen a ruling where they say we can't change our benefit structure, benefit allocation for non-represented employees. And so I know this is it's a sticking point, and a lot of people are very happy they get a lot of money going into VEBA, but if the county can't afford it, is that something that you could change? And as far as your consultant on the HRA VEBA Trust, I don't know any federal rule or state rule that says you can't change the VEBA contribution. That's what I was primarily asked. And then the one point I want to make with employee groups and voting, for represented employee groups, they typically vote by unions, but some unions split their contracts into different job classifications, so they bargain first, like road might be Teamsters as well as another group be Teamsters, but they have two contracts. That's where we typically see different votes on the VEBA. And their bylaws say that what their decision-making process is. It's usually a simple majority of 50% plus one yes, then that passes any business the union has to do, including voting in VEBA. And then for non-represented employees, we still see some classifications, like all elected officials might be in one employee group and other non-represented employees may be in different groups. But we can't form groups just for the purpose of VEBA. I want to point that out, because if you're forming a group with everybody who wants to just do VEBA or not do VEBA, that would be tantamount to individual choice in the IRS's eyes. Because if you can choose to get a VEBA contribution, then it's no longer going to be a tax-free benefit. We'd have to treat it like we would a Section 125 flexible spending account, where it'd be use it or lose it. And we don't want to do that. So I just want to make that clear, that even though, there's some times where some groups have said, like over at the city of Pasco, everybody has to agree 100% before we put it in place. That's really not a federal requirement. It's usually just a majority rule decision. And I also work in Idaho. There I see, because they have few unions, the non-represented employees just have to take whatever the county commissioners decide. So Kootenai County, the commissioners just decide this is how much we're going to put in VEBA for the non-represented employees. There doesn't have to be a group vote, but we like the flexibility of allowing employee groups to decide, and then usually it's a simple majority that says yes or no, and then if it's voted out, then no one in that group can have whatever funding method they're voting on, in this case, benefit dollars. So back in 2016, when the change was made, I wasn't the consultant, but I read the information for our regional consultant at that time, and she worked with the county on making that change because the elected officials no longer wanted to have a VEBA contribution in lieu of health benefits.
Commissioners, any specific questions for Rich?
No, not in here, but go ahead.
So you made the comment as far as VEBA instead of health insurance.
Yes.
You're saying it's either or, they can't have both?
Oh, yes, they can. But if we're talking about the funding method being opt-out benefit dollars, if you waive health benefit dollars and you can't have that go into a person's Yeah, a person can't individually say, I want to put that in my salary instead of that going into my VIBA account. Now, you can have a choice if you have different health plans, and those are tax-free benefits. You can choose among them, and if you don't spend what your employer allocation is for benefits, you can have part or all, depending on how the employer wants to fund it, go into your VIBA account. So if you choose a lower cost health plan, and there's some dollars left over on the table for you for allocation, you can have those excess benefit dollars going into the VIBA.
And who determines the full amount of your health benefits?
Your employer.
Okay. As far as how much can be put into VIBA, as far as not putting the whole amount in for what you paid for, your cost of insurance.
Right.
I find it, of every place I've ever worked, you either took the insurance or you didn't. And I think that is used because they know that some people are going to be able to get insurance from their spouse or previous military, and that kind of helps offset the cost of the insurance to the company as a whole. I just find it odd that because you don't use the benefits, you get the full cash amount.
Oh yeah, that's up to the employer to decide, and most employers, like you said, don't do that. They say if you don't take our coverage, that's fine, you can waive off, we allow it, but they don't incentivize you by providing you with an extra benefit like a VIBA account. And outside of government, you're not going to see VIBA accounts because the way that they're structured is the employer has to be tax exempt to begin with. So that's why we have mostly governments that set up VIBA accounts, a few nonprofits, but mostly governments set up VIBA accounts in order to provide this extra benefit that you're trying to compete for workers in a local area. You could say, hey, we can give you a VIBA because a for-profit entity can't have a VIBA.
All right, are there any other questions?
I have no further questions.
Rich, I just want to say thank you very much for your intel here on the subject. You've been very helpful.
Thank you, and I'll be back for the benefits fair.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. We're moving on to Tim.
Yeah, and with all that being said, commissioners, I really do think that we should study this issue a little bit more. I don't want us to make a snap decision here today. I've heard from a lot of employees, certainly in my role, I want what's best for the employees, what's best for the organization, maximize what we can in VIBA, because it's a difficult decision if you want, whatever we want to call it, equity, parity. But ultimately we want to make the right decision. I do think we should start with the bargaining units and let them lead the way. I think that, I've been watching Franklin County the last couple of years, and, we've typically started with non-bargs. And, I think we should probably flip-flop that and see, let the bargaining units lead the way and see how things go in that regard. But with all that being said, and I'll bring Jeff in to kind of guide the ship, if they can make a motion of some sort to give the county administrator authority to perhaps find an HR firm that is expert in VIBA and contribution amounts in public agencies to figure out how we get this thing rectified. I think it kind of begs the question for Tim. We're trying to figure out contribution amounts. In my estimation, I think we just march forward, obviously, with what we've got, and I don't think we upset the apple cart until we know exactly what we're going to do. We kind of opened Pandora's box here, but so let me bring in Tim and then Jeff.
I think that's fair. I think the biggest dilemma with waiting is that employees may choose a different plan under this method than they would under our current one. So someone that's an employee only or waiving may decide to get insurance if we were under this plan. And I think we're pretty much at the deadline for needing to get the information to the insurance carriers for open enrollment, because we have open enrollment next month, I think it's going to be. And so ultimately, if we're going under the current plan, people make decisions based on that. And then if you change it after the fact, then all of a sudden, they quite possibly would have chosen a different plan. I mean, that's just something to keep in mind.
So Tim, I got a question for you. Currently, if we got roughly two-thirds of the 280 employees taking the insurance, it's costing $1.9 million. How is that going to cost more when we have less than one-third that is costing the county $2.7 million? How's that insurance, if they come on our insurance, how is it going to cost us more?
I mean, it would cost more if for example, if every single person, and not everyone would be eligible, but if every single person all of a sudden enrolled in the family plan, well, if you, I don't know if Mike has that available, the family plan numbers. So you've got employer paid premium at the top. So say they did the PPO 1,000 family, the employer would pay $2,000 plus a medical VIBA of $400. So you're talking $2,400 right there versus what we're currently paying right around $1,600 or $1,500 or whatever. So it really depends on what plan each person would enroll in, and not everyone's going to be eligible to enroll in employee spouse, employee children, employee family. I mean, they're only going to have themselves to cover anyway.
So if they have a better plan, can they enroll in ours too also? Can they enroll in both plans?
I don't think there's anything to stop you from double coveraging.
Okay.
Double coverage. You can have your Franklin County employee can have a plan.
Sheriff, would you come to the mic so that everybody in the Franklin County can hear what you're saying?
There is nothing that stops me from enrolling in the highest plan that's here, okay? There's nothing that stops my wife from enrolling into the highest insurance plan in Franklin County, or in the school district, excuse me. But what happens is I can't go on her insurance and she can't come on my insurance. You can thank Obamacare for that, okay? And they ruled no more Cadillac insurance, which basically meant you can't duel against two insurance providers can't duel with each other so that the employee or the worker doesn't have to pay out of their pocket. And it was done that way so that everybody had equal access to insurance plans. For example, every person in this state can go to the state of Washington's insurance website, and some people like to call it a salad bar, but there's a salad bar of insurance plans that you can go on that cost anywhere from $200 a month to, last time I checked, about $2,700 a month. And every employee, every elected, everybody has the choice to go purchase their insurance where they want to purchase it. The problem with this is we're trying to decide, well, how much of the insurance plan are we going to send to VIBA? And it's a little bit more complicated than that. So the short of the answer is, and that wasn't a very short answer, no, you can't have two medical insurances.
And therefore, if they have a better insurance plan than we are offering here, they are going to stay on that insurance plan. Commissioner Mullen, questions?
I think our system is flawed, to say the least. I think it needs to be corrected. I'm not at this point in favor of just tearing off the Band-Aid and trying to fix it today, because I think there's a lot of external legal obligations that have to follow. It would be my consensus would be to seek outside counsel to formulate a plan that's fair and equitable, and make sure that we don't get ourselves in a legal situation by stripping away something. And also, I think it's in fairness to let all the employees know that we do intend on changing this system and giving them some time to prepare for it.
Right.
I think that's the fairest thing to do.
But
I do realize, like Mr. Anderson said, that you kind of have to know what's coming in order to pick your enrollment. So,
Tim, could we put it off till next Wednesday and at least give ourselves an opportunity to chat before, because it sounds like we're between a rock and a hard spot on a decision.
I'm honestly not sure what the time frame is that HR would need to.
I believe we've got Margot on the phone. Is she on the phone? I know she was having some troubles connecting.
Yes, I'm on the phone.
Margot, what's the deadline as far as choice that you know for our contribution?
Well, right now I have Hub going ahead with their GIS system with our current numbers. They did say that they are willing to make the adjustment if we can, but we do have open enrollment that starts on November 1st. So we might be able to wait till next week, and they might be able to do it, but I would have to reach out to them to find out for sure.
Yeah, because at this point, I would say, yeah, they're going to have to wait on us. I mean, that's because that's what I'm hearing from our commissioners is, look, I think they're going to have to do us a solid and wait so we can, make a good decision for the employees and figure out the direction. Because if we do have to wind up going back to the original contribution amounts, we got to figure that out ASAP. And then get to work with legal and all those other kind of things.
Yeah, and if I might, I just want to say that you put up there a proposal of a 400 VIBA. We've been willing to move on that some and make it higher. And I just wanted to let it be known right now that this is my last term. I believe in term limits. 2 terms is long enough, and I'm making that announcement today because I will not be running for commissioner again. But I'm not looking at this for my behalf. I'm looking at that for the families in this courtroom or in this courthouse that are paying $700-800 a month for their insurance, and they shouldn't be. And I just want what's fair and equitable for everybody. And fair and equitable isn't putting money in your pocket. Fair and equitable is an insurance plan that everybody can live with and know that they have insurance. That's the main thing, is that they have insurance. Not that you're putting money in your pocket on the taxpayer's expense. So I'm just letting that be known right now, because in 3 more years, I won't be on this insurance plan, but I want the best insurance plan for the employees.
I would just like to say, I take my insurance. I don't take any cash. I don't convert it to cash. I think that everybody has their own situation. What's fair and equitable, I mean, that argument could go on and on and on, because, a single person, let's say they retired single, they're going to need more money for health care than somebody that would, say, have a family, someone that could take care of them. So, this fair and equitable is, that argument could go on and on and on. We need to fix it. I think we have legal obligations to people that have been obviously before either one of us were on the board, this whole taking VEBA in lieu of a raise, I don't think that was ever a good idea. And I don't know who started that, but I honestly feel that your wages should be set to where people know what the wage is. The taxpayer, I think they're probably, I would say, uninformed of the fact that people are converting their insurance into cash, which is an income, and it's just not, it's not transparent to where you know what the salary truly is. And again, I would say that as far as an employer offering insurance, that is taken into consideration, that they know that some spouses are going to have insurance and they will not have to pay the same amount for every individual for that benefit, because let's face it, insurance is extremely expensive for the employer. And I believe that's that is taken into consideration. They know that some people aren't going to take it. It makes it more affordable for others. I still think we need some counsel on this to make sure that we do whatever we're going to do, that it's legal and it's fair and equitable to everyone.
And Chair, permission to speak.
Go ahead, Mr.
And
Gonzalez.
Commissioner Mullen, I think I concur most with what you said. Changes are coming, and I think we owe it to the employees to, hey, we're being transparent. The changes will come, whatever we want to call it, fairness and equity. But I do think we owe the employees some buffer time, some time to get, if they're relying on that, and just to balance out the system. So, I really feel strongly about that, the more we get into this, because I do think the system needs to be balanced out more, but I think ripping the Band-Aid off would really create more problems than it would solve, because I think we need to take a measured approach, see how we maximize, but also see how, we fix some of these disparities, or whatever you want to call them, conversions to cash, and just get on a plan that makes sense. I mean, for everybody. And I think we start with the bargaining units. We work with them in good faith. We hire an outside expert that, doesn't have an attachment to Franklin County, that can look at it with an unbiased approach. And then, we come back with a good, solid plan. Mm-hmm. Hey, if it takes a year, then it's worth, if, we get to a place where everybody's good with it and can live with it. I think that's much more responsible, on our behalf as a county, than to say, look, we don't, we're ripping off the Band-Aid and the heck with all of you guys. And I think it'll be appreciated and understood a lot more. But anytime anytime something is taken away, it's a hard thing, for the betterment of the organization. So, and I fully acknowledge, I've been an empathetic ear to a lot of folks, and so it's tough when I hear the stories, and but I also, on the flip side, I hear from families that say, gosh dog it, I wish I had VEBA, because I've got 10,000 in medical bills that I can't pay. I got 3 kids, and it just seems like every time in the mailbox another bill comes, but my coworker has 50,000 in VEBA that they're able to pay, and so these are the stories I hear, anecdotally, and it's just, so somewhere in there, we have to get some balance.
And we don't have to fix it in 1 year? This is a yearly?
Right, yeah.
So we can make a correction for the next 2-3 years and maybe get it where it needs to be.
Absolutely, but I think if we do it right, and it'll be appreciated.
Yep.
I'm in agreement with that. I think that the VEBA's a good deal, because people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. But our system needs to be corrected.
Commissioner, just one more statement. So all the major collective bargaining agreement employees in this county, they're all getting ready to go into negotiations starting November and December, and it'll be rolling on for, well, who knows, the better part of a year with the way the county negotiates, for lack of better words, and that's not speaking ill of anybody. But the major people that are gonna be impacted by your decisions, they're at the table starting to bargain right now. So this is the time to address it with them. And then once you get it addressed with them, Katie, bar the door. Let's get it addressed with them first.
All right, thank you.
So we'll work on this for another week.
Yes, sir. And I did want to bring Jeff in just in case he had something, you know, in terms from a legal standpoint to say, because I'm not the lawyer and get sticky wickets in that area, you know.
No, I don't think we need to take any action at this time. If the commission wants to table this for a week, they can, and then it can just come back on the agenda. So that's fine.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, so we'll leave that for next meeting. Takes us down to public comment. Anybody for public comment? Thank you, Tim.
Now that I know a little bit more, thank you for the visual, Mr. Gonzalez. But I know that we want, I was talking to Mike Killian back here, but we had 5 children. We paid for our own insurance because we're farmers. And we didn't have any, I would have loved a health savings account, but that was our choice, to have 5 children. And I know that you hear hard stories with families, but it was our choice to have a large family. And if you start saying, okay, we're going to pay more for family, what's going to happen is if in the future you might hesitate to hire someone with a large family because they're going to cost the county more. I mean, that's just a collateral. I know that no one here would, but we don't know who's going to be here in the future. And that's just something to think about. So I know you're trying to make things equitable, but to me, fair is, you know, when you're a young person, you really don't use that much health insurance. I mean, even still, I'm 58 and I only go to the doctor once a year. So some people don't need, you know, expensive plans. So I almost think the original plan is almost more fair, honestly. But I do think this cash out thing is inappropriate. It's costing our county more. That costs our county. I know with the electeds, you have to wait until their new term starts, is from what I'm understanding what the sheriff is saying. But if VIBO count, you can take it with you when you retire. And believe me, you know, my mom just passed away from years of Alzheimer's. We could have used a health savings account for some of those expenses, additional expenses. So just thinking about that, to me, what's fair really is the original system that you have almost. I mean, it probably needs to be tweaked or whatever, but just to say everybody gets the same amount of VIBO no matter what, and yet at the same time, families are going to cost more for insurance. So that, just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Peter Harpster, 525 Road 47. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I didn't look at the agenda report ahead of time. The Planning and Buildings Office, I'm really glad to hear you guys approve that request, because I work in land development with all the jurisdictions around here, mostly with Franklin County and then City Pasco, and definitely agree with the comments. By far and above the most disgusting office, to no fault of their own. And Mr. Gonzalez's point of morale, I think is really key. The friendliest staff that we work with is City of Richland, number 1. They've got definitely the nicest building. Second would be Franklin County, Derek and his team. And they just give kudos to them. Anytime we send an email, they respond same day. They answer the phone when we called. Can't say that of other jurisdictions. And so I'm excited to see that they've got this friendly customer service in this dump, for lack of a better term. I'm excited to see how much better it can get when their morale's a little higher with the new building. So thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
I'm Amy and I work in the assessor's office. I've been here for 23 years and my son has had 3 brain surgeries since I've worked here, and I've never had VIBA until 2 years ago. I've paid my dues here, and I really think that what we have in place is not flawed. I made a choice to have kids. I didn't make a choice to have a child that's sick, who still is sick. But you manage. If somebody has $10,000 in medical bills, you can get assistance through the hospital. They do offer that, because I've utilized it, and I've always worked. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners and staff. Thomas Granwell, 108 North 4th Avenue in Pasco. I just wanted to chime in. I really appreciated Commissioner Mullen, your comments there. They really rung true with my understanding about health insurance. I've been in this country for 15 years now, and I still can't quite figure it out, but at least my understanding is in line with yours, so I appreciate your comments there. I think they're good. Also, earlier during public comment, we heard about the tax dollars for mental health not being used. I was at the Pasco City Council meeting on Monday, and Chief Crowley gave a great presentation on that. I don't know if Franklin County's not participating in what the interlocal program that's going on, but it would really benefit everybody to take a look at his presentation so we get a better understanding of what is actually being done. And I know everybody else who was there with me were pretty excited about that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on the phone?
No, sir.
With nobody else stepping forward, we'll move down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Gonzalez.
Chair, I have to I'll be honest, most of my time's been spent on contribution and VEBA and just a lot of conversations, talking to employees, and those are the kind of stories that I've been hearing. So, you know, everybody's situation is different, and you hear those stories of how VEBA's helping out, you know, employee whose son has, brain surgeries. And so, you know, it tugs on your heartstrings because, you know, you want to do the best for the county, but, you know, you also have these individual heart-wrenching stories where you go, oh, man. So that I think taking a measured approach, again, not to beat a dead horse, but I think it's the best approach. And, you know, if changes are coming, I feel good about that. We'll give people a heads up. You know, however long that takes is probably the best approach. And we'll figure out what's best for the employees and hopefully maximize someone like her situation and, you know, and while keeping an empathetic ear, so.
Okay. Commissioner Mullen?
My week, I think, was about the same as Mr. Gonzalez, as I've spent numerous meetings, numerous phone calls, and, you know, in the end, we're just trying to figure out the best solution to the situation that we're in. It was a very trying week, to say the least, but I think we have an issue here that we need to get fixed, and I think it's worth taking the time to make sure that it's fixed correctly. So I did meet with the Harris, with Larry Leisure as far as the HAPO Center. That meeting went very well. I think he's got some great plans for the future of Franklin County. So that's it. Thank you.
My last week consisted of Ben Franklin Transit, and they brought up about a live shooter, which I think is a travesty when it's a BB gun, how you can call that a live shooter. You brought that up before. It's pretty embarrassing that we're calling a BB gun incident a live shooter. The agenda meeting, of course, very productive and informative in getting our agendas set for these meetings. Budget meeting that I attended virtually yesterday, a lot of good information there. And then I also went out to HAPO yesterday and I met with Wes and had a good meeting there with him as far as the what is out there. And I believe we came to the agreement that we need to probably do an RFP in all those horse stalls. So we got quite a few out there. I think there's numbered up to probably 200 to 300.
Yeah, they're still in pretty good condition.
Taking a lot of space up that could be utilized for other things. So, and again, I too was, you know, on the phone with a lot of people about this situation, and you know, it was brought into place because at the time there was 3 commissioners that had a better insurance plan from another employment, which was their wives, and they all decided to take it in cash. And I think that It was selfishly been done, and we got to figure a correct path for the county to go forward so everybody can feel good about the insurance plan. It can be an attractive insurance plan for employees to come here. That's what we're trying to do, is make it the best for everyone. So with that, we'll go down to elected department head business. Is there any elected department heads that would like to come forward?
I want to thank you, commissioners, for holding off on making a decision on that. Even though I've got a couple employees that would have loved to have seen the new one passed, it definitely would have been an extra $800 a month out of the county's pocket for each one of them. So I think it's absolutely appropriate for the bargaining units to deal with this. You'll know exactly what the employees are thinking, rather than just trying to throw it at the non-bargs and the electeds. I really think that's putting the cart properly behind that horse. On growth for the county, it was mentioned that we might see 20, 30,000 increase in the next 20 years. I can tell you right now, statistically, we're looking at over 60,000 population increase in the city of Pasco alone in the next 20 years. We better be ready for it. I just met with the city just the other day. They have 4,000 permits in the process right now in the process for just new homes, apartment complexes and that, just here in the city, right now. And we're anticipating over 7,000 within 3 years. That's massive growth. It's huge growth. So we definitely have to be thinking. The Davidson building, folks, that is a drop in the swimming pool from what this county needs to be planning for and being ready for. So heading in the right direction. The assessment value was 1.89. You get it for 1.1. It was appraised at 1.3. So I certainly couldn't argue with the value and the purchase price that you got it for by any means. So I support that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Morning, commissioners. So I yesterday emailed all of commissioners, and then I'd emailed Mike this morning too about my building concerns. And so I hope that I have the opportunity to meet with you guys individually and just kind of go over that and kind of tell you what I'm up against and what I'm looking at. I really thought that mine was more of a 5-year plan out, but the situations have changed where it looks like it's getting more urgent. And so I just want to talk with you guys and let you know that, looks like I'm going to need an addition to my office with to complete what I need to do and separate myself from Benton County. Thank you.
Thank you. I did get your email and I read it. Any other department heads, elected officials? Seeing nobody coming forward.
I'd just like to say thank you to our coroner for bringing that to our attention, because although we hear quite often from other electeds, you've always done your job and stayed true to the course. So I appreciate the fact that you brought this to our attention, because we need to know what's going on in your office and to be there to help you succeed in it. So I do appreciate you coming forward. Thank you.
All righty, we'll move down to administration office business. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, Chair, and I just wanted to address Thomas Grambois' statement about the presentation. Was a really good one. I was watching the city council meeting from their fire chief, and we are very actively involved in that whole system with the Benton Franklin Health Advisory Board. Myself and Sheriff, we attend that monthly, and the KGH building is coming to fruition. It's still probably a year and a half, 2 years away perhaps, but I think the exciting thing, Judge Orozco was just appointed to the board because of her therapeutic court that she's created, so she's getting heavily involved in that process. And then the other thing that we have going on is Lourdes is setting up a sobering center in the hospital, which I talked to Sheriff pretty extensively about this. We think from a law enforcement standpoint, it's going to really help if a person's having a drug-induced episode, or maybe is just laying on the sidewalk in a certain state, and then they can help them out, get them sobered, hopefully connect them to services. So myself and the sheriff's office was really actively involved when Lords approached us and said, hey, we want to do this, and can you help us work with the Benton Franklin Health Advisory Board? The board was great about it and brought them in front of that board. So that'll be coming to fruition probably early 2024 by the time all the permits get going. But I did want to let the public know that, that's really in our bailiwick, health, public safety, and we're good partners with the city of Pasco, and we all go to that board meeting and we all make collective decisions on the health and wellness of the community. So,
All right. Thank you. Do we have any executive sessions?
No, sir.
Is there any other business for the good of the county?
No.
Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.